Hey there, it's Crystal Summer Bear Jones from Wedding Secrets and Heirloom Photography back for episode 4. So, this particular episode is very important to me as a photographer because I'm going to be sharing 5 mistakes to avoid when choosing your photographer. And I made 3 of these 5 mistakes, even though I'm a professional. And it's because I let my feelings and trust for this person get in the way of choosing somebody that was right for me. So you'll see the background. I'm actually go in my house right now instead of my studio. So this was my setup for the wedding fair that I was at about a month ago, and I will be at the wedding fair in San Francisco at oh, I forgot the name of it. I will in the comments below, I will share the name of the location in San Francisco if you want to go to the wedding fair. This Sunday it's from 12 to 4. So I actually put together a slideshow because it's really important that I actually create, like show you examples and some of my own work and also the wedding photos I received versus what I did to fix the wedding photos that I received. Um, and as talented as the photographer I chose, like his artistry is really cool. But his basic knowledge of editing, so either he just did not edit my gallery, which kind of was what it feels like. It just feels like that it was straight raw to camera. It doesn't look like it was edited at all, which is very odd. Anyway, there's a whole story of this. I could get into it right now, but I'm going to actually walk it back and go ahead and share my screen. So bear with me just a moment. And this one will be a little bit longer. I'm thinking it's probably going to be closer to about 25 minutes. I am trying to keep it a little bit shorter than that because I know we all have lives to get back to. Okay, hold on just a moment. All right, let's see if I can go ahead and make this big. Oh, yeah, good. All right, so 5 mistakes to avoid with your wedding photography choice. Should say photographer, but photography, same difference. You're looking at their photography, right? And in this, I'm actually going to be talking more about their actual photography and not who they are. Because I chose my photographer based off of himself's personality and the fact that I'd worked with him before, not the fact that he actually has as much talent as I thought he had, which he doesn't, unfortunately. At least not in the back end. Very talented and amazing, like unique shots we got though. So I'm very excited about those. All right. So the first mistake is choosing a friend, even a professional, which is what I did. So I went with someone that I knew and I just fell in love with working with him because he's so fun to work with. He's so relaxed, which is really great to have as a photographer, someone who doesn't get super stressed out or worried. However, he was a little bit too relaxed in that he let things go that should not be letting go of. He does not paying attention to detail in numerous different ways. But everybody loved him. Like personally, he's just a great guy, and I have known him and I've second shot for him on a number of occasions. I actually even attended his workshop. So I considered him a mentor and friend. And so I had told him before I was even engaged that I wanted him to photograph my wedding. Now, looking back, I do kind of wish that I had hired the people that I originally wanted to photograph my wedding, and their names, or they were my original mentors, called Amy and Jordan Demos. But they were a little bit outside my budget, and since we only had 5 months to get married, they book out like 2 years in advance also. So I knew they wouldn't be available, and they live in Tennessee now. Also, they are a little bit more light and airy than I prefer these days. However, I think that maybe I might have preferred the light and airy look over what I received. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They are also such an amazing couple, but their starting price is it was $10,000 a few years ago, so I'd assume their starting price is probably closer to $15,000 now. Plus, of course, I'd have to pay for travel. And they have 3 kids too, so I know traveling for them was a little bit harder. Anyway, that's going off on a tangent, which I'm going to do because this is photography and this is what I love. So please bear with me. So he's actually shot 3 times more weddings than I have. I am sitting at around a little over 100 weddings, and he has shot over 300. And Kevin Costner, uh, which most of you, well, I don't know, some people don't know who he is, but he is the dad from Yellowstone, John Dunn. He's also well known for Dances with Wolves and Bodyguard and A Field of Dreams, numerous other movies. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. These are just some of the movies that I love him in, that I grew up with. But more recently is Yellowstone, and Kevin Costner hired him. Um, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. He really must know what he's doing. I don't have to worry about posing. As I said, I second shot for him. Now thinking back on it, I do recall catching a few things as a second shooter when he was doing the group photographs and saying, "Oh, hey, how about we do this?" And I should have remembered that, but I didn't when I was choosing him because I love working with him so much. So I really went with my heart. And so these are some photos here of kind of what one wedding day might look like. And the reason why I'm showing this is because it shows different scenes. So in the next page, I'm going to show you how to avoid making this mistake. And I need to move this out of the way because I can't see. And one of the ways is having them show you a full gallery. And the next screen is going to show you a little bit more of this, but you're going to see that all these photographs are in a different lighting. So you can see that I had to use a flash down here and a flash here, but they are not blown out at all. They still look great. And this still looks like it all came from the same photographer. Now these photos up top here, the bridesmaids are a little bit more light and airy than I photograph now. I do more true to life, and these are a little bit brighter, but by a hair, not by much. Other than that, this is very much how I photograph these days. But you can see there's different lighting in all of these situations. All right. Oops. There we go. So you want to ask for their full gallery. Make sure they know how to use a flash. You don't want anyone to look blown out in night photos. Now, there are photographers who specialize in natural light photography, and that is a photographer I hired. He's very good at natural light photography, although he tends to be very much in love with very low aperture, which means a very blurry background, and you're not guaranteed to get everybody in focus, which is great in some circumstances. I do love that look, don't get me wrong. However, when you're talking about groups, I never photograph in less than f-stop 5. So it's 5.0. I never photograph under. And what that means is that you still get a softer background, but you get the group in focus. Now, if it's a multi-layer group, then I will create more of a depth of field so that more people are in focus. Because this is a wedding day. This is not about my artistry. I use engagement sessions oftentimes to have some fun with being artistic. I get all the shots that all the couples want, and then I have some fun and I do some artistry stuff. And that's what I use engagement session for, or wedding styled shoots. I do not use a wedding to practice artistry. This is about you and your day. So you want to pay special attention to the parts of the wedding that are most important to you. So I did not realize how, well, I realized how important family photos were to me. And when I looked at his full gallery, because after we got our engagement photos back, we were actually really upset because for a few reasons. One, he had put this grainy filter on all his photographs, which I could not stand. And two, even though he knew we wanted more true to life photographs, there was a lot of contrasty and weird angles and not flattering angles, very artistry and edgy, which is not what we were looking for. And we had discussed this prior to the engagement session. So afterwards, we did almost fire him, despite the fact that we would have lost out on $5,000, no, not 5,000, $4,000 of our deposit would have been lost. We were willing to lose that because of how important the wedding photos were to us. So we actually sat down on a Zoom call and went through 3 of his galleries. And 2 of the 3 were like amazing. And the third one, I was like, that's a little bit dark and moody for my taste. There was nothing in these galleries that suggested that he didn't know how to edit or he didn't know how to do group poses. Everything looked great. But looking back on it, I was looking more at the couples shots because that's what I had just seen from the engagement photos. And I didn't take a harder look at the group photos. So I should have looked more at the larger family photos and seen how he posed them, how he put their hands. Did he make sure that everybody stood up straight? Was everybody's eyes open? Things like that. And I don't remember looking very closely at that because I was more focused on the couples part of it because that's what we had just done and that's what we had been unhappy with. So I'm holding this up close to my mouth, so I do apologize if it's popping, but I do have a busy street by me, and so I am hoping that the noise doesn't come through. It's fairly late, and usually it's fairly quiet this time of night. But if you hear cars driving by, that is why. Um, but I have the setup here at home, and that's why I wanted to do it here at home. Um, anyway, so you want to ask for several galleries and at different venues. So different venues have different lighting. So they're going to, of course, show you their best gallery. I send the best galleries to my clients as well. However, like for instance, if I have a client who's getting married in church, I'm going to show them church weddings so that they see what my work looks like inside a church. Because number one, churches usually don't allow flash. So a church wedding is going to look significantly different than an outdoor wedding. So be very aware of that. If somebody is not good at doing indoor photography, you don't want to hire them. If you're doing a Catholic wedding or a church wedding of any kind, they generally do not allow flash. And in some cases, they don't allow you to move around. So I photographed a Greek Orthodox wedding and I was not allowed to move around at all. I had to choose one spot that was right next to the altar. And then my husband, well, at the time he was my fiance, chose a spot up high in the deck above and got all the overhead shots, which were great. It actually ended up working fabulous. I'm going to take a little drink of tea here. But the photos were a little bit darker and a little bit different because I couldn't get angles, but the bride and groom faced the altar nearly the entire time, like 95% of the time. So thank goodness I was standing where I was standing. So I actually got amazing shots. But you want to think about that. You want to think about your venue and if your photographer has experience photographing at that venue. Okay, second mistake. Ask the editing details of what's included. So this is another wedding that I did. It was more of an elopement style wedding and it was at City Hall. So the reason I chose these three images is because they were distinctly different lighting. So you have this one, which is the balcony of where they got married, and there was light coming in overhead and there was light coming from both sides. And yes, did I still use a flash? I did. Can you tell that I used a flash? No, you cannot, because I know how to use a flash correctly. Over here on the bottom, also, so there's a bright window behind her and there's a window in front of her. I did still use a flash because the lighting was still a little bit dark in this area. And then this is outdoor, which I didn't use a flash for. But these all look cohesive and good, and they're all different areas with different types of lighting. So some of the things that you want to ask about that generally as a couple, you're not going to know to ask these questions. Now, I did ask these questions and I was told that touch-ups were included, making sure people's eyes weren't closed, things like that. That is not what I received at all. And I had gone back to him already and asked for a few extra shots. And at this point, I was like, look, I didn't even want to go back to him again because I can fix it myself. However, if you ever come in the situation where you've hired a photographer and edits are included, like touch-ups are included, and those aren't seen on your side, like something obvious, like people's eyes being closed or someone like the bride's chin being very unattractive, absolutely go back to your photographer and just let them know, hey, I was under the impression, per the invoice and the contract, that touch-ups were included uh, in the wedding package. And then see where they go from there. They may have forgotten, they may have been in a hurry. If they're a photographer that does 30 weddings a year, a lot of times they actually don't edit their own weddings, they send them out. And then the person they send it out to may not have edited it correctly. So you want to make sure and find out what's included in the editing process. So for me, for instance, I always include for every group photo, I ensure everybody's eyes are open in at least one of each group shot. So I'll include the one that I took where maybe somebody's eyes are closed, but I will choose the best one. And then sometimes I have to overlay 6 different photos. If it's a large group, it's very difficult to get everybody's eyes open, no matter, even if I take 10 shots. It is the way it is. Skin touch-ups. So for me, I do skin touch-ups on some of the more important photos, like the couples portraits that I do, anything that's really noticeable. But most of the time, I only do skin touch-ups on things that are going to be printed or go into an album. So I will do it on group photos that I know are really important or other couples portraits that I know are going to be important. Other than that, whatever is going to be going into the album that most customers end up ordering or the print. So I always include one print, so that's always touch up. And then if they do end up ordering another collection, I touch up anything that they plan on going to print. And that is now or later. I've had a couple who got married 3 years ago come back to me and asked me, they ordered a print and I went ahead and touched it up for them. So yeah. You want to ask if they use filters. So we could not see on his website or Instagram that he uses a grainy filter, which basically makes it look like he kind of uses film. However, I have worked with film photographers and they don't use the amount of grain that he uses in his filter. There's also photographers who, and by the way, I did ask that he not to use that filter for any of our photos, and he did comply with our request. He just didn't put a filter on it when he edited it. So I know that he did at least do some editing on it, but as far as I can tell, it was very basic run through Lightroom and export kind of a deal. But some photographers will put an orange hue to their work that's very popular, or a shadow and contrast look because that's their style. That's very popular. It's something I see a lot at wedding fairs. In fact, I am often the only photographer there who does true to life, timeless journalistic photography. And you can kind of see behind me what it looks like. And I get a lot of people at my booth because people love that look because it's timeless. It's not something that's going to go out of style in the near future. Okay, so where are we at? Will the images be in color? Will be color and exposure corrected within reason. So this is something every photographer that I know of does. They color correct the image and they make sure that, the exposure of the image is correct. However, depending on the experience of the photographer and their style, that may or may not be to your liking. So just be aware of that. I'm going to show you examples. And then another one, which is a specialty, is if a group shot is missed, are they willing to create it in post? Now, this is usually something that only luxury photographers do, and I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by that. Okay, so on the left is what was delivered to me. On the right is my edit. So one group shot that was really important that I get that was not gotten because I didn't remember it, even though I had given the photographer the list, he basically didn't really kind of went by it, but he relied on me mostly, despite the fact that I had painstakingly written him a complete list of all the shots that I wanted. One of the shots I wanted was me with my family. I have divorced parents, and I wanted me with all of my siblings, all of my parents, and my niece. So I took these 2 photos. So this is my mom on that side of the family, and this is my dad on that side of the family. I took these 2 images and I created this over on the right. Something else you'll notice that I did is so look at my mom's hand right there. It's just like laying limp on the side. That looks horrible, generally speaking. It's not an attractive look. It looks like the photographer didn't know how to pose the group, which is exactly what happened. So I was able to create this from a different photograph. But you can see how cohesive this looks. You cannot tell that this was not originally taken. Now, this is partly because I have a degree in interior design and a certificate in graphic design, and so I have been photoshopping and drawing and creating things like this for a very long time. This is something I do. I haven't had to do very often. I had to do it for my own wedding. I also didn't get a shot with me and my siblings. So I had to create that as well, and that was really hard and I felt bad. I felt like I blame me. I didn't even blame the photographer that I had missed that. Uh, again, that was the photographer who should have been on top of it, but I understand being a photographer that some shots get missed, and I was annoyed with myself for not catching that. So, all right, we're gonna go down to the second one. So, oh, before I move on, you're gonna notice the screen. If you notice how bright neon, depending on the screen you're looking at, but this is a neon green. Really, really bad. This does not look good at all. So I toned down the green to make it a little bit more muted. And that is my style. Now, some people will like this really bright green. I don't know anybody personally who loves this ridiculously saturated green. I also don't like it when the light and airy photographers tend to take all the green and only almost make it a blue green, which I love it as far as the prettiness of it. It's super pretty, but it's not that timeless classic look, so I don't do it. I like it to be more of what I saw, but a little bit toned down because when I look at the grass in real life, it was really in between these two, but in photographs, it does print out a bit better if the green is a little bit muted because it is very distracting in the photos on the left across the board. You'll also notice that these are very flat looking images, and that's because he put almost no contrast into these. And you'll see the difference, how much brighter and cleaner this is on the right compared to on the left, and how the people pop out just a little bit more. You'll also notice my mom is not looking at the camera and my dad is not looking at the camera. This was the only photograph I received with us and all of our parents. This is Aaron's parents, this is my dad and stepmom, and this is my mom and stepdad. Both of my biological parents were not looking at the camera. That is not something any photographer should ever deliver to anybody, and I still to this day have no idea why he did it. And just so you know, I've ensured that like it's highly unlikely that he's going to find this video. Um, but if he does, hopefully he learns from it. But just so you know, that's why I'm not telling you his name. I don't want to say his name because again, he's a very, very nice person. He just needs a little bit more schooling on how to edit. So you'll see over here, I did not do anything with my stepmom's arm, and that is because, or any of the arms on the side. And that is because I actually felt like it worked out okay. Their arms looked fine, and I couldn't find a photograph where my stepmom's arm was like moved up, and AI has not, trust me when I say that weird things I came up with when I circled the arm and inputted what I wanted AI to do, came up with some weird things that I would never use. But now my dad's eyes, he has glasses on, so it's hard to tell that he's looking at the camera. But I used a photograph in which his head was turned more towards the camera, and obviously my mom is looking at the camera. So I was able to create this image. This is not the original crop, by the way. It was full body, but so I could fit it on the screen. And then at night. So over here, you're going to see that she is super blown out. It's not horrible, but there were worse ones that were more blown out, but this was one of the ones that I edited for the guest gallery. And you can see that I just toned it down a little bit over here so that her face doesn't look whitewashed. Okay. All right, I gotta have some more tea. Okay. Third mistake, not reviewing in full what shots you want. Never assume they will just get what you want. For instance, I don't have a single good shot of my wedding party standing up at the altar. The best one I have is from far away, and I actually just went through my gallery and I can't even find that shot. So Yeah, my videographer, however, had two stagnant cameras up, and so I'm actually going to pull from his footage and get a photograph of that because I'm not going to print it out. It's just going to go in an album. So I don't need to be printed out very big. Pulling images from videography, it's depending on the size that they filmed it at, you can actually make some larger images. They do this in Hollywood all the time, but the cameras they use for filming in Hollywood are much, they're a bigger format. So pulling an image from something like that is fine. Pulling an image from a 4K or 8K camera, you're still going to be able to print it probably up to 11 by 14. So I'm actually still in the midst of going through my videography raw footage that I got. Most videographers do not do that. However, because I'm in the industry, they were willing to do it for me. And I also paid for B-roll. So part of the B-roll is straight footage of the ceremony, which is wonderful. But I asked for very specific shots and I did not specify, hey, can you make, I actually, no, I did specify I would love to get a shot of the brides, like the couple, sorry, us standing in the front with the full wedding party. And this is really the best shot I have of us walking away. And you can see everybody, almost all my bridesmaids, but that's it. And only a couple of the groomsmen. Other than that, you can't see them. And then the one other shot that I really, really wanted was this shot right here, which was he stood on a chair and everybody stood up and we took a photograph. However, he did not change the settings appropriately to ensure that more people were in focus. So yes, he changed it a little bit, but you'll notice in the back, everybody's super and blurry and out of focus. And I'm going to show you how I've done it in the past. And again, this is not something I felt like I had to go ahead and say, can you please make sure they're all in focus? I did actually say that. However, he still took creative liberty and only me and the few people in the front were in focus and everybody else was blurry. Were a little bit more blurry. And you can see that this does not look edited. It looks like it's straight out of camera because one side is completely dark and one side is completely light. I was able to fix that even using a JPEG and not a raw image. And the other one I really wanted was me running through, the bridesmaids and the groomsmen on each side. And this was the best shot I got. He had so much room to back up. He could have backed up all the way into the vineyard behind me. He had so much room to back up. He didn't. He chose to do this. And so this is a fun photograph. Don't get me wrong, but this wasn't, I actually showed him exactly the image that I was looking for, and this is what I got instead. So it's better than nothing. I'm glad I got it. You know, unfortunately, we did it too fast and we didn't get video of it, which is a bummer. Again, this is something for the photographer should have known to wait for the videographer to get the shot, but it was right after the wedding because I was running late. And it took me an extra 40 minutes to get my dress and all the other stuff on than I was expecting. And then the photographer did take too much time during the first look. I was actually trying to rush him to move faster so we could get to the group shots and get this one in before the wedding, but we had to do it right after the wedding. Which, we're in shade and it's fun. It's nothing that devastated me or anything like that. It's kind of a bummer. Okay, so these are examples of work that I have done. Now, some of them are fairly old, and I do mean like 7 years old, so they're not some of my best work. This one here at the bottom, I'd only been doing photography for a year when I did this wedding. So you can see they're all in the bright sun. And then the couple had just kind of hit the shade a little bit. So that's why the lighting's a little weird. But you'll notice that even though I'd only been doing photography for a year, I still knew to increase my aperture to get most everybody in focus. Even the very back, the groomsman back there, I can see his face pretty well. Right? That's crazy, huh? Um, Up here, great shot of the couple with the entire wedding party. It's cropped in pretty close, but still, same thing. It's just from the side. Great. And I did it from both sides for this one. Um, This is another example of they're walking down. I stop them because this is what I do. Unless a couple doesn't want me to do it, then I won't. But generally, every couple wants the shot because it's a great opportunity to get the everybody looking at the bride. It's a great candid. They stop walking down the aisle, they kiss, everybody's cheering and laughing, and I got an amazing photograph of them with their entire wedding party behind them. The other thing I asked for was a wide shot of the reception area because I had designed the entire reception. It like staying up till 5 a.m. and getting up at 9 a.m. kind of work for the last 3 weeks before my wedding. This is what I got, what I've done, and you can see it. That's pretty cohesive. I got a lot of really great close-ups, but almost actually no wide shots of my wedding reception. The videographer, I believe, did get some. I still have to go through it all. Okay, my apologies. I had to cut out real quick because I got a little bit of tea leaf stuck in my throat. Okay, moving on. I left off at I wanted a wider frame of the reception area, and I did not get that. Um, the videographer, I believe, got it, but I'm still looking into that. Fourth mistake, not having enough coverage. This is not a mistake I made. I had full coverage all day long, and I'm very happy I did. So remember, photography under cinema photography is all you have left after the wedding. It allows you to relive your wedding day when the day is gone. So this is a really, really important. The wedding day goes by very, very fast. And my photographer showed up at 11 a.m., got all the detail shots, took it easy, and he was there till 10 o'clock at night. He was there for 11 hours. And generally speaking, the longest wedding I've done is like 10 and a half. 11 is like the first 2 hours are pretty chill. So yeah, I have been booked for 10 hours and then shown up like half hour to an hour early to do the detail shot. So technically, yes, I've done an 11-hour wedding. It is full coverage and it's not as long as there's a second shooter to give the photographer relief. That's really important. So never rely. So I have a lot of people, well, like, I don't need the reception photos because I can just have my family and friends take phone photos. Getting phone photos from guests takes a lot of work and you have to bug them over and over and over and over again. Yes, you can use hashtags and create your own hashtag. And yes, you can have a cloud where they can literally just scan it and upload it. But I'm going to tell you one thing. They will not do it unless you remind them or the DJ reminds them over and over and over again at the wedding. They're busy having fun, so do not rely on your guests to provide any photos. Yes, I got some photos. I got photos from 3 people. That's it. That's after me asking 5 times. I got 3 photos. 3 people sent me photos. I'm probably going to ask again, but it's been so long at this point, they probably don't. So, I'm going to go to specific people and ask if they have some photos, and that's about it. But I did ask the 3 people that I knew for sure that I saw taking a whole bunch of photos, and that's why I went to them. And then a few of my friends I'm going to go and ask. But trying to get photos from your guests is very much a pain in the butt. So you want to make sure you have coverage to everything that's most important to you. I love doing grand exits, and you can see I did one right here. This is me and my husband. And this also wasn't one of my favorite images taken. I would have liked a wider angle of this. Actually, I think the original image was wider, but it was a row on both sides with twinkles because in California you can't use any kind of sparklers, especially not in August. So we used like LED twinklers, which was a lot of fun. And the kids could participate as well because kids generally can't do the sparklers. So if you have kids in your wedding, doing these LED faux sparklers are a lot of fun. And I got all the getting ready photos that I really wanted. That's why it took a little bit longer than expected. So my only regret was that I wish I had hired a student photographer for like a couple $100 to come in and do the rehearsal dinner and then do photos the next day at our brunch. Because my cousin actually took a lot of photos at the brunch and I took a couple, But I was busy hosting and doing other things, so I didn't take a lot of photographs at the rehearsal dinner or the brunch. So I am kind of bummed at that. I do wish I had gotten more. I wish I had done that. But I didn't think about that till after the fact. So, oops. And again, I'm a photographer, but I was also designing my entire wedding and doing it in 5 months. So some things slipped through the cracks. Okay, so this is what my wedding full coverage. These are all things that were edited. This is me going through and editing all his photographs. So this is what they look like after I edited it. But you can see from start, he was there from the time I was getting my hair done, my makeup done, really when my makeup done, all the way through, and I got all these great photographs and all the way down to, the bouquet toss, the cake cut. We did a special bouquet for the bouquet toss. So, this is kind of like what full coverage might look like from start to finish. Okay, so the fifth and final mistake is choosing a photographer based on price. So I have heard more times than I can count where people will literally spend money on the venue, they'll spend money on the caterer, they'll spend money on the DJ, they'll spend money on the florist, and then they're like, yes, we only want to spend $2,000 on a photographer. Okay, so you literally just spent $30,000 on everything else, but you only want to spend $2,000 on the only thing that is actually left after the wedding. Like, that's it. The food is eaten, the decorations are put away, the flowers wilt and die. You have your memories, but even those can fade over time. Unfortunately, I've known too many people who have dementia or Alzheimer's. The memories fade. The photographs I get to go through from my parents' wedding mean so much to me. And it was different back then. It was 1979. You didn't get nearly the amount of photos. And so I don't even get to see photos throughout the whole day. All I got to get to see is the posed photos because there were no candid photos taken. So I have no idea what the reception looked like, which is kind of sad, right? I would have loved to have seen it. So the photography is not just for you. It's for the next generation and the generation after that and your great grandchildren. It's for them. This is why I always say when like parents, they're like, "Oh, I'm not photogenic. I don't look good." It's not for you. It's for the next generation. Your distant ancestors. Well, I guess that's the opposite way. Your future generation. You're going to be their ancestor. They're going to want to know about you. They're going to be curious. Am I curious? I love going on to ancestry.com and going into my past. My grandfather was on the Groucho Marx show. I have a video of him on the Groucho Marx show. It's important. I have very few photos of my grandfather. I have two or three on my dad's side. I have one or two of my biological grandfather on my mom's side. And my great grandfather was Julian P. Graham. He was a famous photographer. However, he was behind the camera, so there's not that many photos of him either. So it's important. It's not just for you. It's for your future generations. Your children are going to want to look at these. Maybe not when they're teenagers, but when they're growing up and getting married, they're going to want to see it. Or something, God forbid, happens to you or one of you guys or your parents. I had a client lose their mom 6 months after the wedding. You want to know how much that wedding gallery means to her? A lot, because it was the last good photograph she has of her mom. So I get emotional about this. Hiring an expensive photographer is not a guarantee. I paid $6,500 for my photographer, which is the kind of middle range for a mid-level luxury photographer. So luxury photography starts at 10K. It's but the median range for an experienced photographer is anywhere from 4 to 8K starting. So, but if you go kind of, okay, this photographer charges between 4 to 8K, they are at least experienced. And then from there, you can know what questions to ask to make sure their style and everything you want is included. So these are just things to think of. It's a lot, but generally speaking, the cheaper the photographer, the less experience. And then when you're looking at the 4 to 8K range, which is the range that I fall in, I've had numerous people tell me that I should charge more for that. However, I love working with people who book me in this range because they generally are just very appreciative, amazing people. That doesn't mean I won't eventually go up. I'm going to be adding film to my repertoire. So once you add film as a photographer, if you want a film photographer, which has a very unique look, very classic, very timeless, and they do combo, they do hybrid film and digital, then you are going to minimum spend 10,000. And why? Because the cost of film is expensive. And the cost of turning it into digitals is expensive because they send the film out to get digitalized to get sent back. So it's expensive. If you want a film photographer or hybrid photographer, expect to spend anywhere from ten to $20,000 on your photography if that's what you're looking for. Okay, I've talked way too long. Again, I could go on and on. This is my jam. This is what I love. I'm a photographer, so I could go on and on. But hopefully this was helpful for you because this outside of venues, this is one of the hardest decisions you are going to make, who your photographer will be. All right. Until next time. Bye bye now.